What's up, everybody? Matt Gajewski here, back again talking college football. And today we are discussing Pittsburgh ahead of the 2025 season. If you like this content, please consider subscribing or leaving a like. Both of those help a small channel like this a ton. If you have any feedback, please leave it in the comments, whether it's a suggestion for a new team, something we missed on Pitt, anything you'd like to say. I respond to all of them. Thank you if you have done that. Let's talk about Pitt last year quickly before we spin this forward to this season. Last year, it was an up and down season for Pitt, and I want to contextualize a lot of these efficiency metrics right away. Pittsburgh had a lot of injuries overall, and a lot of these numbers are brought down because of the quarterback injury. This team played 8 offensive linemen, and their offensive line combinations were basically countless. And a lot of the rhetoric around Pitt is that this team became a shootout team throughout the year. They were actually very good on defense. They stayed a little healthier over there, but they were 36th in total defense and pretty strong across the board. Their weakest unit was coverage, where they came in 47th. It was really just the offensive injuries that sort of derailed their efficiency metrics, and they were non-functional with the backup quarterback until the end of the season. But the offense played very well throughout the beginning of the year, and I think there is some optimism as this team moves forward into, year 2 under Cade Bell, which we'll talk about. But that's kind of why you see them outside the top 100. There's a few other things we'll mention as we just get player by player. But overall, it was a bounce-back season for Pitt. Pat Narduzzi is now in year 12. His record with Pitt is 72-56. Previously, he was with Michigan State coaching defense. But I say bounce back because they've only missed a bowl twice under Narduzzi. One of those was in 2023. They were 3-9 that year. But last year they bounced back to 7-6, make a bowl game. It was a little bit of a weird season. They were 7-0, and then they finished with a 6-game losing streak, including a bowl loss to Toledo in a wild shootout that finished 48-46. But overall, they had a lot of close games. Single-digit wins against Cincinnati. That was a wild comeback win. They won by 1 point. West Virginia, they win by 4. North Carolina, they win by 10. Cal, they win by 2. They had a couple blowout wins over some of the weaker teams, Kent State and Youngstown State. Then they beat Syracuse in blowout fashion. If you remember, that was the Kyle McCord pick-6 game where he threw 1,000,000 interceptions. But again, Pitt's defense was solid, so credit to them. As far as their defeats, they lost by single digits to Virginia, Clemson, and then Toledo, we already mentioned. They lost by double digits to only SMU, Louisville, and Boston College. So overall, I think it was about where you would have expected Pitt to finish, considering their injuries. Had they stayed healthier, you probably could have gotten an extra game or two out of that roster. But speaking to the offense, Cade Bell's back for year 2. Previously, the Western Carolina OC. He was 3rd in pace and 18th in pass rate. He runs a weird, unique scheme and supposedly very complex, which reporters continually tell me that this is going to be a better season with continuity, with familiarity. It takes some time to get into this playbook. They had a lot of young players playing in a new system, particularly Holstein as a transfer QB, first time in this system. But it's a lot of pro-style stuff. He just does it at tempo, very, very fast tempo. Defensive coordinator Randy Bates is back for his 9th season. He's been awesome. He was awesome last year. He's been an excellent DC throughout his tenure. So continuity there is solid. Let's take a look at talent acquisition for Pitt. This is not one of the premier talent acquirers in the ACC, but it never has been. This has been a developmental program. As long as I've been alive, really. In the Narduzzi days, it's been this. There have been multiple seasons where I've been pleasantly surprised because of the development we've gotten. But they're hovering in the low 50s, into the 40s in some years. That's kind of the middle of the back end of the ACC, somewhere in there. Retention's pretty good for this team. The only reason they lost their recruit this year is their top player unfortunately passed in the 2025 class. Good retention from 24, good retention from 23. They don't use the portal a ton. Their last 3 seasons, they've been at 64, 51, and 60. Kind of a situational portal team. And they're very reliant on just looking and developing talent that they can get on their roster through high school or wherever they do bring in transfers. But let's take a look at this roster because there's a lot to talk about. We have this data usage tool. Pull it up right now. Transfers are in yellow. We're trying to project the 2 deep. The year they are in school, that is to the right. How many snaps they played the last 2 years. What star they were in terms of recruit. And then a value score. 50 is about your average player. And we are trying to project how these starters are going to be moving forward. It starts with your recruiting ranking. And then the more snaps you play, the less it looks at recruitment, the more it looks at what you put on the field. Which brings us to the QB position in Eli Holstein. He's a former Alabama 4-star. He's back for a second year starting with Pitt. He missed 3 games due to injury last year. Pitt was not the most functional offense without him. He completed 62% of his passes, 2,228 yards. That was 7.7 yards per attempt, 17 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 12 big-time throws, 20 turnover-worthy plays. He's 6'4", 225, so he has a good frame. But when you look at those turnover-worthy plays, he had the 4th highest turnover-worthy play rate in the country, behind only Jalen Kitna, Braden Locke, and Joey Aguilar. So there was a ton of good we saw with Eli Holstein. His numbers are brought down by those turnovers and the turnover-worthy plays. This guy fumbled 9 times. He needs to clean that up. He needs to clean up the interceptions, and he's lucky that he only had 7. There were a number of interceptions that were dropped by defenders, which benefited Pitt and got them to close wins. That is also how some of their efficiency metrics trailed a little bit, because the numbers are factoring in interceptable passes, not just the ones that actually got intercepted. Fortunately for Eli Holstein and Pitt, this is very correctable. He's extremely young, and that was his first year in a really complex system. So if you can clean some of these up, we all saw the flashes. There is a lot of potential for Holstein, and there's a lot of potential in this offense. So I absolutely am not writing him off, and I will play to the flashes here. A couple other things on his profile. He did rush for 328 yards. That was 4 yards per carry. That could have been better. He took 21 sacks. That was a 17% pressure to sack ratio. If he can reduce that a little bit, that would also help his efficiency metrics. Because of the sacks, because of the turnover-worthy plays, he finished as the 92nd most efficient quarterback in college football. Again, dropped interceptions, and you can clean this up. So I want to say, moving forward, I'm expecting a big jump from Eli Holstein, and you could see him as high as in the 20s and 30s given his profile. This is an awesome player. We just need to cut back on the negative plays a little bit. Behind him, they bring in Colt Gonzalez from Western Carolina. He's reuniting with his OC. Gonzalez is 6 feet, 198 pounds. He has a career 63.5% completion percentage. The big thing with him, he's going to be a backup. He had his best season in 2023 under Bell. Last year, he took a pretty big step back, but fortunately, he will be returning to that system. Not the most mobile guy, but he runs a little bit, and his passing numbers were pretty solid. Big problem with him is turnover-worthy play, so seems Pitt as a type A quarterback at this point. But let's go to the run game, where probably their best player, Desmond Reed, returns. He's a Western Carolina transfer, 5'8", 175 pounds. He's a little heavier now, according to reports. But last year, his first season with Pitt, Reed rushed for 966 yards. That was 5.3 yards per carry. Did a lot of his damage as a receiver, 52 catches, and he was awesome. 42 forced missed tackles, 532 of his yards came after contact, 24 runs of 10-plus yards, and his pass catching was unbelievable. He also returned some kicks and punts on special teams. He finished second on the team in receiving. Just an unbelievable dynamic weapon for this team. He's going to be their best offensive player more than likely. Depth pieces, they lose a few of them, but they return Derek Davis. He's a former LSU 4-star, 6 feet, 210 pounds. Only 2.6 yards per carry last year. Not fantastic, but, I mean, he's only played 54 career snaps in 4 seasons. He's also been injured this spring, so we'll see what he can do. Jules Goff is also back. He's 5'9", 190 pounds. Redshirt freshman now. Only played 18 snaps last year. 2.5 yards per carry, but a very small sample. Neither of these players are going to play more than change of pace work if everything goes according to plan. They also have a couple other players. Ja'Kirian Turner is a 3-star freshman getting some hype. Kind of, I think because of the injuries in the spring, he's been getting extra reps, which never hurts. They have a D2 transfer in Justin Cook. He's 5'10", 180 pounds, played at East Stroudsburg. Looks like a passing game specialist. We'll see what we get out of these players. Their backfield is very small outside of Derek Davis, but we know how it's going to run. At wide receiver, they lose their number one pass catcher, Kanata Mumfield, but they do return their 2 and their 3. That's Kenny Johnson and Raphael Williams. If you look at the profile of Williams, I think he's probably their 2 and their slot receiver. Kenny Johnson probably their 1. Johnson, 6'1", 200 pounds. He caught 46 balls for 537 yards, playing on the perimeter 87% of the time, 1.36 yards per route. This offense does run a lot of stuff underneath, a lot of screens to the running back, a lot of screens to receivers, short underneath passes, which suits their offense right now. As far as Williams goes, he's 5'10", 165 pounds, originally a Western Carolina transfer. Last year, he caught 37 passes for 426 yards, played 90% of his snaps in the slot. 0.82 yards per route was very bad, but Williams had a couple things working against him. One, he was the wide receiver 3 in the offense, maybe 4 if you want to consider players like Reed or Bartholomew ahead of him. But anyway, he also had 5 drops. That was 12% of his catchable targets. He needs to fix the drops. He also was running their clear out stuff, their deep stuff. He had the deepest ADOT on the team among all the starters. And while that certainly contributes to volatility, Holstein is not a good deep passer. Holstein completed 36% of his deep passes last year. That was 74th in the country. He was living underneath and functioning through yard after catch situations. We'll see on this. Holstein's got to get a little better downfield as well, and that would definitely help Williams, who is a vertical slot receiver. They also have former Western Carolina transfer Sincere Lee. He's 5'11", 175 pounds, caught 19 passes for 254 yards on the perimeter. 1.31 yards per route is pretty solid. Those 3 are all going to play a lot. But Pitt did rotate, and you're going to play at the speed of light. You have to rotate some guys. It's just the way it is. They add Kataris Hicks from Louisville, Deuce Spahn from Florida State, formerly of Illinois. Hicks is 5'10", 180 pounds, caught 12 passes for 145 yards. Basically 50% out wide, 50% in the slot. Some services had him as a 4-star. When he came out, he was just parked behind some very good receivers last year at Louisville. Spahn is 6'4", 210 pounds, originally played at Illinois, then at Florida State. Only 15 career catches. Biggest indictment on him is he couldn't play in that horrific Florida State wide receiver room. Not expecting much. And honestly, wouldn't be surprised if an incumbent 3-star, someone on the roster, maybe jumps these guys. Tyreek Robinson is a candidate. He played 30 snaps last year before getting hurt. 5'10", 175 pounds. They also have Zion Fowler L, who's 6 feet, 185 pounds. He's played a bit the last couple seasons as well. Tight end, they lose Gavin Bartholomew, but they do return an Oregon State transfer, Jake Overman. He was with the team last year, 310 snaps. He's 6'4", 240. Caught 17 passes for 160 yards. Average blocker, think he takes a step this year. He's a pretty good place to start. I'm not sure if he lives up to Bartholomew, who is a quality starter for this team, but Overman has a bit of experience. They also returned Malachi Thomas. He'll be a sophomore now. They add Justin Holmes from Marshall. Thomas needs to gain a little bit of weight, but he did play 23 snaps last year as a freshman. Holmes, originally a Kent State transfer. He goes up to Marshall last year where he mostly rides the bench. He's undersized at 241, 6 feet as well, so he does not have good height. He's never really even posted above average production in the G5, so I think we're looking mainly at a depth piece. They also have freshman Max Hunt. He might be higher on the depth chart than people want just because of a lack of options for this offense, but I think Overman leads this position. And overall, the pass-catching group, I don't know what to make of this. It wasn't a strength last year. They were running a lot of stuff underneath, dropping a lot of passes, which definitely didn't help Holstein either. I would say they were kind of a weakness for this team because so much of the offense was forced to run through Reed. They didn't really add a lot. We're talking some low-level transfers, unproven transfers in Hicks and Spahn, and then just relying on developing former FCS transfers outside of Kenny Johnson. We'll see how it goes. But I do believe in the development of this team, so I think they are at the very least going to take a jump. We'll see how high it goes. I'm a little suspect of the overall ceiling because of the talent, but I do think this can be an above-average receiving unit, including the tight end. Offensive line, they had so many injuries last year. I mean, 7 guys had at least 343 snaps. 4 of them are gone. They do return their best player, center, Lyndon Cooper. He's a former NC State transfer, only allowed 12 pressures, very good run blocker. He's going to hold down the center of that offensive line. From there, their right side is intact. Right guard B.J. Williams is back. He has 1,270 snaps combined the last 2 years. Took a step forward last year, only 24 QB pressures, 3 sacks. Above average run blocker, so he's a solid starter at right guard. Right tackle, Ryan Baer is back. He has 1,540 snaps over the last 2 years. He was the starting right tackle last year before injuries across the offensive line forced him to switch positions. He started the final 5 games at left tackle, and his production suffered for that. He had better metrics when he was playing the right side, so I don't want to condemn him too much. 44 pressures, 6 sacks allowed. It wasn't great. He was much better in the run game. But again, some of his worst games came when they forced him to switch positions to the left side. You're asking a guy to do quite a bit midseason, and sometimes you have bad injury luck. You're just going to get stuff like that. So to potentially fill the void and move Baer back to the right side, they bring in a couple transfers. At left tackle, Jeff Percy from Michigan, Kendall Stanley from Charlotte. Percy is a former Michigan 4-star, started 2 games last year. Not the best play out of him on the field. He allowed 10 pressures on just 82 pass blocking snaps, which isn't great. And 7 of those pressures did come against Illinois. It is what it is. He is a highly recruited player. Stanley's from Charlotte. He played 706 snaps at right tackle last year. Only 15 pressures, 1 sack, a very good run blocker. Perhaps he could play the left side. There's some options at tackle that they didn't have last year. At left guard, they bring in Keith Govea from Richmond. He's a multi-year starter in the FCS. His best year, 59th percentile production. That was on 260 snaps. He was below the 50% mark in the 2 years prior. So a lot of questions for me on Govea. I don't think he should actually start unless he's developed a lot, because 59th percentile FCS generally is not going to cut it in the ACC unless their coach was just bad and couldn't coax talent out of him. I don't know about that. They do have some options behind him that I would just love if they developed immediately. 4-star redshirt freshman Caleb Holmes. He would be a much better candidate, even if he's projected to play a different position. Jackson Brown, Isaiah Montgomery, Ty Ray, Ryan Coretta. Let's get some of these players that were decent recruits on the field over low-level FCS transfers. We'll see if they do that. That'll probably play out in the summer. But if Govea is winning this job, it's probably a bad sign for the development of the young kids. We just don't have that information fully right now. Only preliminary reports out of spring. We'll see where it goes. The offensive line can't possibly be worse. The only way they would be is if they suffer the same amount of injuries, which is very unlikely. This should be a decent offensive line, probably one that's around average, maybe a little above average. Defensive line, off the edge, they lose Nate Matlack, Sincere Edwards. This was a pass rush unit that really struggled at times. They were not the best at converting pressures to sacks. So you're going to see a lot of pressure numbers, not as many sack numbers. What we just need is for them to convert these at a higher level, and then their pass rush would be one of the most formidable in the ACC. That starts with Jimmy Scott, and right away, 40 QB pressures, only 6 sacks. I'm just going to say a guy that affects the pocket 40 times through a season is positive, even if they don't lead to sacks. Jimmy Scott had a good year. In the run game, he had 30 tackles, 13 tackles for loss. I think he's a solid place to start. The challenge is just going to be finding a running mate for him. And they bring in transfers Jaden Moore from Oregon, Joey Zielinski from Eastern Michigan, Blaine Spires from Utah State. Moore, he had 104 snaps last year with Oregon, 16 pressures. Now, a lot of those come against backups. It's a tiny sample. But, man, that's a very good pressure rate. Playing with the Ducks, pretty decent recruit. I think he's a strong candidate to complement Jimmy Scott. You also have Zielinski, who was a 2-year starter with Eastern Michigan, 36 pressures, above average run defense numbers last year. Just the jump in competition for him. Blaine Spires, he was originally with Bowling Green, played the last 2 years at Utah State. Only appeared in 4 games last year, but in 2023, 27 pressures with above average run defense. It's a pretty good unit overall. And they also have Nate Temple back. Maverick Gracio is back. Temple was hurt a little bit last year, but he was above average in 2023. Gracio's been mentioned a lot this spring. So this should be a very good edge unit. I'm not expecting a big step back, and this unit was firmly in the top 40s last year. Inside, they returned most of their interior except Naki Johnson. The group is led by Sean Fitzsimmons. He is an elite run defender. Only got off 326 snaps, but 32 tackles, 5 tackles for loss. He should be a player that starts and holds down this position, probably leads them in snaps. Former four-star and Indiana transfer Nick James is back. He played 371 snaps, right on average, 4 pressures, 19 tackles. He's 285, so he could gain a little weight if they wanted him to. Isaiah Neal played 422 snaps. He's only 260, so he's kind of more of like a 5 technique and inside-out player. He was a little bit below average, missed 4 tackles, which didn't help, and 15 pressures. But he's only a redshirt sophomore, so quite a bit of room for growth for Neal. Francis Brew is back after 252 snaps. I think he should have played more, honestly. 11 pressures, strong run defense numbers on 252 snaps. I mean, he was a little bit more efficient than most of this group. He has earned the right to play a little bit more. So as you can see, there were a lot of flashes from the defensive tackle unit. They chose to rotate them, and I think that should be the case this year. It's a deeper position than people might give them credit for. At linebacker, they lose Brandon George, but they return Kyle Lewis, who is the best player on this defense. He was second on the team with 101 tackles. He was first on the team with 16 tackles for loss. He was a good blitzer. He had 32 QB pressures. In coverage, he allowed a 73% completion percentage for just 320 scoreless yards, 4 picks, 2 PBUs, and he's one of the most versatile defenders probably in the conference. He's 225 pounds. He led Pitt in snaps from the slot, which surprised me. So you can play him in the slot and you can keep 3 backers on the field and help your defense a ton with versatility. He's an excellent player. They also get back Rasheem Biles and Braylon Lovelace. Starting with Biles, he's 220 pounds, played 534 snaps last year. He was third on the team in tackles with 82, second on the team with 15 tackles for loss, a good blitzer with 16 pressures, good in coverage, 66% completion for 182 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick, and 5 PBUs. Those are 2 awesome starters. Lovelace trails a little bit behind Lewis and Biles, but he's 222 pounds, 447 snaps. He had 53 tackles. He just was a little less efficient. He missed 13 tackles, only 7 pressures. Coverage was pretty good, 67% completion percentage for 75 scoreless yards and 1 pick. This is an awesome unit up top. Depth-wise, you have Davin Bruton, Jeremiah Marcellin, Nick Lappy. I don't know. Lappy's former walk-on, only 38 snaps. He's probably going to get jumped by some of these low-level, or I guess higher-level recruits. But it doesn't really matter. Their starters are so good with this team. As long as there's not injury, this should be the best unit on the defense. Defensive back, they lose Donovan McMillan and Rylan Gandy. They do return Timon Lynum, and Rashad Battle. Lynum is originally he's originally a Nebraska transfer. Started for the first time last year, 435 snaps to his name. His real struggle came in run defense. In coverage, he was very good. Lynum, 58% completion percentage, 275 yards, only 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 4 PBUs. Pretty good coverage numbers for him. He should start on a boundary. Rashad Battle, he started for the first time last year, 547 snaps. A little bit better in run defense, 36 tackles for him. Completion percentage at 65%, 399 yards, 5 touchdowns, 4 PBUs. He had some problems with big plays. So you have one corner struggled a little bit in the run game, one corner struggling a little bit with big plays. Hopefully just another year of experience cleans that up a little bit. To bolster this unit, they bring in Zion Ferguson from North Carolina and Rashawn Murray from California, PA. Ferguson's a former 4-star. He hasn't played a snap yet, but he's still only a redshirt freshman. Murray's from D2. He was his second-team All-American down there. Just a big jump in competition for him. They should mostly be depth pieces. They also have Shadarian Harrison and Cameron Lindsay, who played a handful of snaps. I mean, unfortunately, we mentioned this at the beginning of the show. Pitt recruited 1 4-star. He was a corner, Mason Alexander. Unfortunately, he passed this offseason. A tragedy for the team and everyone with the program. So condolences there. But as far as other depth pieces, they're lucky that they have Kyle Lewis, who can kick in the slot and really help this defense with versatility at the corner position as well as linebacker. So that definitely helps. At safety, Javon McIntyre played 574 snaps. 200 of those also came in the slot. So that's a big thing with Pitt's defense and being multiple. Different players can play in the slot at different times, depending on the looks they're giving. And it's really confusing for opposing offenses when you see Lewis in the slot, then you see McIntyre. It's awesome for them. But McIntyre had 51 tackles. He was a very good run defender. He's a 2-year starter. In coverage, he struggled at times with big plays. Last year, 67% completion, 425 yards, 4 touchdowns, 3 PBUs allowed. That's decent. Just got to cut down big plays. They also have Cruz Brookins back after 278 snaps. He's now in his third season. Last year, he had 35 tackles, was a very good run defender. Allowed 220 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks, and 1 PBU. Again, it's kind of, we need to cut down big plays a little bit. They also have Jesse Anderson back after 43 snaps for depth. Pair transfers, Jaden Bonsu comes in from Ohio State at safety. Kavir Baines-Marquez from UC Davis. Bonsu is a redshirt sophomore 4-star, yet to play a snap. Baines-Marquez is, I don't know how to put this. He played a lot with UC Davis, and he never played more than 350 snaps in any of his first 4 seasons. And then last year in his 5th season, he just erupts for 950 snaps. He's a very old player in the FCS. We'll see what he gives you. Special teams, they bring in a Murray State transfer at kicker, James London. He was perfect on extra points. All 23 of them were good. He was 14 of 19 on field goals. Now, that sounds bad, but listen to what they were asking this kid to do. He was 6 of 9 on 50-plus yard field goals. This guy made 2/3 of his field goals beyond 50 yards, and he kicked 9 of them. This guy has some legit range. All of his other misses came beyond 40 as well. So, I mean, we're talking about 14 of 19. Yeah, it's not great. But then when you see the distances he was kicking from, it's extremely excusable. There's a lot of potential with this guy. His range is legit. So optimistic about the kicking game, considering what they're getting out of this kid with a rocket leg. But overall, the roster has a lot of continuity for Pitt. Injury luck was one of their main problems last year. And if we can just sustain better health, it should be a much better season for Pitt. And it was already a bowl season. Just could have been a little better if they stayed healthy. Let's take a look at the schedule, the most important factor for Pitt as we head into the season. It's a weird schedule. They have Notre Dame, which is a really tough non-con. And they have the backyard brawl on the road this year against West Virginia. West Virginia's rebuilding team, brand new head coach. Ton of change there. So it's a game Pitt should be favored. And at the very least, if you're giving West Virginia a lot of – Pitt is a better roster than West Virginia. But if you want to do the home field thing, which they will, of course, playing in Morgantown, maybe that comes in around a pick 'em. Maybe it's a slight West Virginia favorite spot. It's going to be close regardless because of where it's being played. So at the worst, you're 2-2 in non-con. Likely you're 3-1. Once you get to conference, this is a little bit more forgiving than some other schedules. They face Miami, but they dodge Clemson and SMU, which is great. Those are 2 of the top 4 teams you're not playing. They do play a healthy amount of the middle class. They have to travel to Georgia Tech and Florida State. Louisville's at home. And then once you get a little bit lower, some of their harder games are on the road in the middle class. Syracuse is on the road. They do get NC State at home. Cupcake against Stanford will round things out. Boston College is here. So it's not the hardest schedule, but it is going to come down how Pitt is in relation to the middle class of this conference. Is Pitt significantly better than Boston College? Are they significantly better than Florida State, who's entirely rebuilt again? What about NC State? Syracuse is on the road. That's a rebuilding team, lost their QB and a lot of other positions. I think there should be a bowl season for Pitt, but as usual, this is a very hard team to evaluate on the high end versus the low end. We've seen them bottom out once in the last 2 seasons. We've also seen them overachieve with a lot of FCS players and an FCS coordinator. They're all in their 2nd season now. So I tentatively would project something similar to last year, 6-7 wins. But I do realize there's a ceiling for much higher, considering this is not the hardest schedule, and there is a ceiling talent-wise for this team. But thank you guys for watching. Let me know who you'd like to see next and what you think. Until next time, good luck. We will see you again soon.